New videos every day.
Are you suffering from severe headaches? Not necessarily migraines, but maybe you are having migraines. Are you having muscle aches and pains? Are you suffering from IBS? Do you just feel run down and you really don't know why? Well, maybe it's your food that's making you sick. My name is Marquette, and I'm a registered and licensed dietitian, and I'm also a certified health fitness specialist through the American College of Sports Medicine. I practice nutrition at Marquette Nutrition and Fitness in Austin, Texas, and I'm going to talk to you today about food sensitivities. Food sensitivities, they involve your immune system, but they're different from food allergies. So let me explain to you a little bit about what they are. Food allergies, those are something that utilizes your IgE antibodies. And by that I mean it's in your immune system, it's the type 1 pathway. For most people who have a type 1 mediated food allergy, they're going to know pretty quick, usually within minutes, maybe an hour after they've been exposed to a particular item. They're going to suffer from hives very frequently, itchy, watery eyes, their throat may close, they may have trouble breathing. They know pretty immediately that they're having a really bad reaction to something that they just ingested. So those are the most common symptoms associated with a true food allergy or type 1 mediated reaction. But you have 3 other pathways in your immune system, the type 2, 3, and 4 pathways. These pathways, they do not utilize the IgE antibodies. And with these pathways, the reactions quite frequently are delayed. Sometimes they're within an hour or a couple of hours, but they can be delayed up to 3 days after your exposure. These are going to be your food sensitivities, and this is how they're different from food allergies. Again, they don't utilize the type 1 pathway. They utilize the other pathways. And those other pathways, they may use IgG antibodies or IgA antibodies, or they may use other things in your immune system. Your white blood cells are what basically release the different antibodies and other mediators. So some of these other mediators could include things like prostaglandin, cytokine, complement, histamine. You've probably heard the word antihistamine before, meaning frequently when somebody's having an allergic response, they'll take an antihistamine, something like that. So again, those other pathways, they utilize these different mediators. And frequently, because the reactions are delayed, they're slightly different than with the type 1. Usually you're not going to have hives, so to speak, or you're not going to have that rapid onset of your throat closing or feeling like you can't breathe or things like that. But you may have problems with headaches. You may get dark circles under your eyes. You may have stomach upset. You may have muscle and joint pain. There are a number of things that can manifest with food sensitivities. And again, because they're delayed, they're very difficult for the average person to try and figure out on their own just by keeping a food diary. Because if you're eating something different every day and you're writing these things down and you experience a reaction, you don't know if it was something you ate that day or the day before or 2 days before. So it can be very difficult to try and figure out on your own if you're not utilizing any type of lab work or any type of test. The other thing to keep in mind with these type of reactions, we call them food sensitivities, but they also can be provoked by chemicals, different chemicals you're exposed to. And if you eat a lot of processed food, you're going to be exposed to a lot of different chemicals, all of those different dyes that are found in your food or in your drinks. They could quite possibly be what's making you sick. They could be causing you a problem. Sometimes it's naturally occurring chemicals, something like solanine that would be found in the nightshade vegetables, in the vegetables like eggplant or tomato or potato. You might have ability to tolerate a small amount of it, but if you eat too much of it, that's when it can provoke a response. So that's another area where food sensitivities are different than type 1 food allergies. Sometimes with food sensitivities, you might be able to tolerate a small amount, a small dose, whereas with a type 1 food allergy, you can't tolerate any of it. A small amount will send you into a reaction, and some people can actually go into anaphylactic shock, which is lethal. So it is different from type 1 food allergy in that regard as well. You may be wondering about food intolerance and where does that fall into the picture. Well, food intolerance is completely different. It doesn't actually provoke your immune system. What's going on with a food intolerance is the fact that you are probably deficient in a particular enzyme, and that's what's preventing you from digesting a food properly. So, for example, the most common food intolerance most people have heard of is lactose intolerance. Somebody who has lactose intolerance doesn't do well with milk or milk products. And the reason why is because their body isn't producing enough of the lactase enzyme. So that's not allowing them to digest the lactose, and therefore it causes them problems, very frequently abdominal problems, things like painful gas and bloating and things like that. Some people also have fructose intolerance, and the same thing, they don't have the enzyme to properly digest fructose, and so for that reason they don't do well with products that have a lot of fructose in them. There is testing to determine whether you have those problems as well. Very frequently, hydrogen breath testing is used to determine if you have lactose intolerance or fructose intolerance. But frequently, that's something where it's a pretty quick reaction, so frequently people can figure that out on their own. So let's go back to the food sensitivities and talk about how you could actually determine whether or not you are having a reaction to food. There's a lot of different blood testing that's available on the market. ELISA, IgG is one type of test. Now, that test is highly accurate. The only problem with it is that not all food sensitivities are IgG mediated. So the problem with that test is if your reaction is not caused by IgG, if it's caused by complement or prostaglandin or cytokine or any of those other mediators, and there's hundreds of mediators, that test won't pick it up. It's only going to pick up reactions that are provoked by IgG. So that's the limitation of that particular test. There's other tests, ALCAT, MRT, SAGE, and they all have their good points. But in my opinion, the mediator release test, or MRT for short, that one is the best in that it tends to be the most accurate. When that test is utilized, every time somebody gets tested, they do a split sample. So basically, they run the test twice to make sure that you get the same results both times. And also with this particular test, it doesn't look at one specific mediator. It's called an endpoint test. What it's doing is it's measuring a response. And they do that by measuring the change in the liquids to solids ratio of your blood. They get your control sample, and it's full of the plasma and your red blood cells and your white blood cells and that type of thing. And then they inoculate it with a different antigen. So if it's reacting, there will be a change in the amount of solids because your white blood cells are going to burst open and release all of those different mediators or particular different mediators. So that's what it's measuring. It's measuring the fact that there's a change, that your white blood cells have released some type of mediators. So it doesn't care what the mediator is. It doesn't care if it's IgG or if it's complement or if it's something else. So from that perspective, it can pick up a lot of different reactions. It doesn't matter whether it's a type 3 or type 4 pathway or which particular mediator is causing the problem. It's going to pick it up. And the accuracy is very high. It's well over 90%. So I like that particular test in determining what's causing you a problem related to food sensitivities. So what kind of benefit can you have from getting this type of testing done? Well, for one thing, you'll know what foods you need to avoid to help calm down your symptoms. Very frequently, when you've been exposed to a food or a chemical that's causing you a problem, your immune system is so revved up that you may have underlying symptoms that you're not even aware of. You're just aware of the thing that's screaming the loudest. If you're always getting migraines or if you're always having a bout of diarrhea or something like that, that's what you notice. So frequently, when you find out what foods are causing you a problem and you eliminate those foods, your immune system starts to calm down. And so sometimes you might feel a little bit worse because the first thing that you were noticing has gone away, and they're like, oh my gosh, now I'm having muscle pain or joint pain, or now I'm getting headaches, or I didn't have these before, and things like that. Well, that's all part of the process of basically detoxifying your body. And so it's basically withdrawal symptoms. Usually those resolve themselves very quickly. For most people, within a week, they feel better from those type of symptoms. If you started out with very severe symptoms, sometimes it may take a couple of weeks for those things to calm down. But usually by then, you feel so much better. You finally start to figure out, wow, this is what it's like to feel normal, to not have muscle pain, to not have joint pain, to not have constant bloating and diarrhea and all of those different things. And so from that point on, you can actually start trying other foods and figure out your own body, because all of these panels, no matter which one you get, they're all limited. They're not going to be able to test every single food or every single chemical that's out there. But if you follow a protocol where you're only allowing yourself the foods that came back on your panel as safe for you for a certain amount of time until you're feeling better, then you can start experimenting with foods that weren't on the test panel. And it really helps you figure out whether those things are going to cause you a problem or not. So it really helps you learn your own body. I've seen people who have problems with fibromyalgia, and it's not going to be a complete cure to those things, but it will definitely help you feel a whole lot better. So if you're having, again, problems with diarrhea, headache, muscle pain, joint pain, and you haven't been able to figure out why, you've gone to your doctor and they've done all the standard tests on you and they can't find anything. Maybe you went to a gastroenterologist and they said, no, your colon's fine. You don't have any polyps. They've checked your small intestine. You don't have celiac. They've ruled out all these conditions and they can't figure out why you still feel bad. It may very well be your foods that are making you sick. So if you'd like some more information on that, please feel free to visit my website, marquettenutrition.com. And I thank you so much for listening and watching me today. Please give us a thumbs up on this video and please add this channel to your favorites. Thank you very much.